The day everything went wrong. So I'm working part-time at this AEON mall in rural Japan, right? It's one of those massive shopping centers that basically becomes the heart of small Japanese towns. I've been there for about 8 months, planning to quit soon anyway because, honestly, retail isn't my thing. But I never expected my last few weeks would turn into absolute chaos because of a bathroom incident. Here's what actually happened behind the scenes when a cross-dresser controversy went viral and nearly destroyed our store's reputation. Trust me, the real story is way more complicated than what you saw on Twitter. The customer complaint that started it all. So it's a normal Tuesday afternoon when this middle-aged customer storms up to the information counter. She's absolutely furious, demanding to speak with management about what she calls an inappropriate person in the women's restroom. According to her, there was someone who looked like a man dressed as a woman using the women's facilities. Now, in Japan, this kind of complaint isn't super common, but it's not unheard of either. The problem was how our staff member handled it. Instead of following protocol, which would be to immediately contact security and a manager, this employee just said, "We can't do anything about that," and basically dismissed the customer. That was mistake number 1. The social media explosion. Well, you can imagine how well that went over. The customer was already angry, but being dismissed like that, she went straight to Twitter and posted about the whole incident. Her tweet basically said that AEON allows men in women's bathrooms, and when she complained, staff told her they wouldn't do anything about it. The post started getting retweeted like crazy. People were furious, calling it everything from a safety issue to corporate negligence. Within hours, we had hundreds of angry comments, people saying they'd boycott AEON, and local news outlets picking up the story. The regional manager's phone was ringing non-stop, and suddenly, our little suburban mall was at the center of a national debate about transgender rights and bathroom policies. Shakushin, behind-the-scenes panic. Meanwhile, I'm watching all this unfold from inside the store, and let me tell you, it was absolute chaos. Corporate was freaking out because AEON has this whole diversity and inclusion image they've been pushing lately. They've got rainbow flags during Pride Month, diversity training seminars, the whole 9 yards. But they also can't afford to alienate their traditional customer base, especially in rural areas where social attitudes can be more conservative. So here they are, caught between their progressive brand image and practical customer relations. Management is having emergency meetings every hour, trying to figure out how to respond without making things worse. The real problem with our training. Here's the thing that really bothered me about this whole situation. We actually do have protocols for this kind of thing. When there's any kind of security concern or unusual incident, we're supposed to immediately contact our shift supervisor and mall security. It's literally in the training manual that every employee gets. But this particular staff member either forgot, panicked, or just didn't want to deal with it. Instead of saying, "Let me get my manager to handle this properly," they made a unilateral decision to dismiss the complaint. That one moment of poor judgment turned what should have been a quiet, professional resolution into a PR nightmare that had corporate lawyers involved. The gender identity minefield. Now, this is where things get really complicated in modern Japan. The person in question might have been someone who genuinely identifies as female, or it could have been someone just cross-dressing for personal reasons, or honestly, it might have even been a woman who just looked masculine. These things happen more than you'd think. Japanese society is slowly becoming more accepting of LGBTQ+ issues, but it's still a work in progress, especially outside major cities like Tokyo and Osaka. AEON wants to be seen as progressive, but they also can't ignore legitimate safety concerns from customers. It's a balancing act that, frankly, minimum wage retail workers shouldn't have to navigate on their own. The Internet Peanut Gallery. Of course, once this story hit the Japanese internet forums, everyone became an expert. The comments were wild. Some people defending the person's right to use the bathroom they identify with, others calling it a safety issue, and then you had the usual internet trolls making jokes about everything. One commenter even claimed they were an attractive cross-dresser who gets positive attention on the street, which, okay buddy, sure. Another person suggested it was technically trespassing, while others pointed out that this kind of thing happens all the time and usually gets handled quietly. The whole thing became less about the actual incident and more about people projecting their own views on gender, corporate responsibility, and social change in Japan. Corporate damage control mode. So while I'm just trying to do my job and serve customers, the corporate response team is working overtime. They brought in PR specialists, legal advisors, and even cultural consultants to help craft a response that wouldn't make things worse. The challenge was acknowledging the customer's concerns without throwing the cross-dresser under the bus, while also admitting that staff training needed improvement without making it look like AEON doesn't take these issues seriously. They ended up with this carefully worded statement about reviewing policies to ensure all customers feel safe and welcomed. Typical corporate speak that says everything and nothing at the same time. What actually should have happened? Looking back on this whole mess, the solution should have been pretty straightforward. When the customer complained, our staff member should have immediately called over a supervisor and mall security. They would have discreetly investigated the situation, possibly speaking with the person in question to understand the circumstances. If it was someone who identifies as female, they could have had a respectful conversation about the store's policy and maybe offered to accommodate everyone's comfort. If it was someone being inappropriate, security could have handled it properly. Instead, we got this social media firestorm that could have been completely avoided with basic customer service and following our own protocols. The aftermath and what I learned. In the end, the story eventually died down, like most internet controversies do, but not before causing weeks of headaches for everyone involved. The staff member got additional training. Management implemented new procedures for handling sensitive situations, and I got a front-row seat to how quickly things can spiral out of control in the social media age. As someone who was planning to quit anyway, it was actually fascinating to see how a single moment of poor judgment can create this massive chain reaction affecting corporate policy, public relations, and even national conversations about social issues. The whole experience taught me that in today's world, every customer interaction could potentially become a viral moment. And retail workers are basically on the front lines of social change, whether they want to be or not.